the writer and co-creator on Guardians of Elayim, and we'll be talking a little bit more about kind of where progress is on that series. The script to the second issue at this moment in time is finished, and so I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about what you can expect as far as what our future plans are for that series, and what you can sort of expect from the second issue, and maybe a little bit beyond that. Okay, but first we'll go ahead and kind of remind ourselves where we're at this point. Sort of what a little bit about the series for those of you that are coming in maybe a little bit late, and we'll go ahead and talk about that. Keep in mind that Guardians of Elayim is about 7 people who were present at the crucifixion of Christ, and the death of Jesus ends up causing a massive explosion throughout time and space that causes damage to what's called the Elayim tree, or basically the Omen versus answer to Yggdrasil, and in fact is sort of kind of the replacement to Yggdrasil in our cosmology. So the action really kind of focuses on the centurion that was responsible for that, who is Marius Decimus Longinus. And the second issue is going to focus a little bit about the consequences of his decision to spear the side of Christ as per the legend. So we're going to kind of go into a little bit of that, his judgment, and then what that leads him to in the future. The main thing to kind of keep in mind with Marius is that basically he's kind of an honest soldier who's been asked to do a dirty deed, and because of that he kind of has to weigh the good and the bad. And he's also someone who really didn't want to kill Jesus. We're going to find out that, you know, he did have a certain amount of respect for him, and we're going to find out why that is in the second issue, at least a little bit. Okay, so. And beyond that, you're also going to have sort of the side plot, the B plot, as it were, with the other Guardians who were involved in the incident, but in a roundabout way, and the members of the Guardians were not on the same side when it happened. So they're going to have to figure out what's going on, where they are, and then they're going to have to sort of negotiate with each other as to where they go from here. So we're going to see a little bit of that. And in the meantime, we also have the angels who have intervened. And to a certain extent, there's a larger divine plan that they're trying to uphold here. So we're going to see a little bit of this. And we're going to move forward with that. Okay. So basically the idea with issue 2 is that it deals with the judgment of Marius, how the angels ultimately have to negotiate what the situation is with Marius and what they're going to do about him, because he committed a pretty bad crime. Killing the son of God has consequences in heaven. You know, this is normally a crime that they would judge severely, harshly. However, because of the nature of what happened, because of certain mitigating circumstances, including one that happens in the first issue, we're going to see that there's a little bit more complicated issues involving this. And we're also going to see what the angels end up doing about this. So Uriel, who is set over time and space, he is the assistant director in charge of the Angels' operations dealing with time. So he's going to be the one ultimately responsible for sort of negotiating away. And he kind of sees potential in Marius, I think, in terms of being able to repair the tree, being able to repair the damage to the tree. So he has to, you know, think about what El, who is God in the Omenverse, what he intended. He has to think about, you know, what Yeshua's intent was. he also has to deal with what the political fallout in heaven is, because they're not all going to be on board with what Uriel has in mind. And so there are all these little things in the background that he's going to have to think about. And Marius is up against all of these things. You know, he wants to sort of show, not necessarily that his actions were just. I mean, he wants to be treated justly, obviously, but you know, ultimately he wants to do the honorable thing wherever that takes him. And we're going to see that he is going to accept a certain amount of responsibility in terms of the explosion and what happened, you know. And we're going to sort of see how he negotiates that in the issue. And in the meantime, okay, we're also going to see the Guardians sort of relate with each other, and they're very different people. You know, you have Kabosh, who is a bandit and is not particularly happy being, you know, taken up basically to heaven or a pocket plane near heaven, which is where the action takes place in this issue. So you also have a sneak thief. You have a merchant who is basically looking out for the bottom line and what will get him the most coin at any given time. But on the other hand, you also have a healer, you know, someone who is a true believer. You're also going to have, you know, someone who is in favor of Roman values, Ileana, who is, you know, sort of representing sort of that view. Yeah, and also you're going to have another character that we will be introducing, who is plucked from the literary domain to a certain extent. So we're going to see basically how that goes. And all of these sort of interactions are going to, I hope, shed some light on their characters for you, a little bit about kind of where their purpose is going forward. So we're going to be looking at that. And from there, they're going to be going on their first expedition into time and space. And I'm hoping that you're going to be seeing a lot of hard choices. I'm going to drop them in the middle of a war. And you're going to see what war that is towards the end of issue 2. Okay, so we're going to be looking for that, and that's going to set up the story in issue 3, where a number of them are going to have to think about their loyalties. A number of them are going to have to think about maybe doing things that they're not particularly interested in doing, or maybe even proud of doing, because you know, their own existences are riding on it, and the existences of things that they value are going to be riding on that. So we're going to be sort of looking at those things towards that. There are going to be other stories as well looking forward, dealing somewhat with a little bit of legend, a little bit with the historical domain and the literary domain. We're going to be crossing a little bit into those paths, somewhat with those. So we're going to be looking at this. And you're also going to find out a little bit about the mechanics of time travel in the Omenverse. You're definitely going to be seeing, at least to a certain extent, the cosmology of the Omenverse into. It's going to be very much a big picture kind of issue, where you're going to kind of see sort of the celestial viewpoint to a certain extent. So we're going to be looking at those things. You'll also look to see how their key bands work. We're going to be introducing those. They're going to basically be entrusted with these artifacts that they wear, which are going to enable their travels through time. And they'll have other benefits that we're going to see a little bit more in issue 3. So that's going to be kind of when we start getting into the functionality of everything. But issue 2 is going to be very largely how things work, why things are working the way they're working, and, you know, moving on to the next the next stop on their journey, because it's going to be a long journey for all of them, and they're going to have a lot of lessons to learn during their trip. Okay. So I think that just about covers most of what we're going to be looking at looking forward with Guardians of Elayim. Thank you for taking an interest and time out in this series, and I hope that this information is kind of useful to you, or looks like something that you might be interested in reading at some point. Please hit like, subscribe, hit the magic bell for notifications, and until next time, this is Steve with Omen Comics signing off.